The story opens by introducing the immense scale and power of galactic empires, behemoths that dominate vast regions of the galaxy. These empires are not just powerful in terms of military might but also in their reach and influence, controlling multiple star systems, an enormous variety of planets, and resources that span entire sectors of the galaxy. They wield unmatched power, both in terms of technology and economics, with systems that operate with military precision and deeply ingrained hierarchical structures. At the heart of these empires is an incredibly powerful military, often spanning thousands of ships, each capable of unleashing devastating destruction. These fleets are equipped with advanced technology far beyond anything a smaller civilization like Earth could ever dream of. From planet-destroying weaponry to ships that can travel across galaxies, these fleets are near invincible, capable of wiping out resistance in an instant. The force projection of these empires is unstoppable, and their presence alone is enough to make any potential threat cower in fear. But it's not just their military power that makes them formidable. Galactic empires are also highly structured, with complex political systems that maintain their control over vast swathes of the galaxy. Highly organized and bureaucratic systems run everything from commerce to law enforcement to civilian life. The societies within these empires are often highly stratified, with elite ruling classes at the top who control both the economic and military might, while the general population may live under a system of oppression or manipulation. These empires extend their influence far beyond mere military presence. They control resources, from energy sources to minerals, that are crucial to powering their fleets, building infrastructure, and sustaining their populations. Strategic locations like resource-rich planets or asteroid belts are tightly controlled, ensuring that they have economic dominance over their territory and can maintain the flow of resources to fuel their war machines and technological advancements. The ability to control resources allows them to weaken their enemies, as smaller factions struggle to compete with the scale of their operations. The alien empires also command entire populations, whether through direct rule or through puppet governments that answer to their central leadership. These populations are often forced to conform to the empire's ideals, customs, and even ideologies, with loyalty being a central tenet of their control. In some cases, these empires may have long-established cultural hegemony, having shaped the thinking and values of the planets under their control for millennia. They have mastered the art of psychological warfare, shaping minds and attitudes in ways that ensure resistance is either impossible or easily crushed. These empires are not just large in terms of their territory, but also in their influence over politics, economics, and culture across the galaxy. Their influence can reach into the very hearts of distant worlds, controlling everything from trade to social structures. They use their resources to suppress dissent, maintain peace through fear, and expand their power, ensuring that any species or civilization they come across must either fall into line or face complete subjugation. For smaller factions like Earth, the sheer scale of these galactic empires is terrifying. The thought of challenging an empire with such vast influence, whose fleets stretch across the stars, whose armies can crush planets, and whose political systems control entire societies, seems like an impossible task. The size and power of these galactic empires make them seem not only unbeatable but inevitable in their expansion. No matter how advanced humanity might become, they are microscopic in comparison to these massive forces that have been building for millennia. This overwhelming power sets the tone for the story, where the stakes are nothing less than the survival and independence of smaller civilizations that must learn to navigate the complexities of diplomacy, resistance, and survival under the shadow of galactic empires. It establishes the terrifying reality that fighting against such an empire isn't just about military might, it's about surviving within a system that can crush any opponent and reshape entire galaxies to its will. One of the primary reasons it's so challenging to battle against galactic empires is their overwhelming technological superiority. The empires possess technology that vastly surpasses anything that smaller civilizations, such as Earth, can produce or even comprehend. This technology gap creates a massive disparity in power, making the idea of challenging such empires seem almost impossible for a less advanced species. Advanced weaponry, galactic empires have access to highly destructive weapons capable of wiping out entire fleets, planets, or even star systems. These weapons are built with technologies far beyond anything humanity has developed. Some of these weapons might be capable of unleashing planetary-scale destruction, using powerful energy beams, gravitational manipulation, or even nuclear-level explosions. Earth's militaries, with their limited resources, are no match for such devastating force. Any direct confrontation with the Empire's fleet is essentially a suicide mission for the smaller civilization. Unstoppable shields. In addition to offensive weaponry, galactic empires have impenetrable shields that protect their ships, stations, and planets. These shields are likely based on highly advanced energy manipulation technology that renders conventional human weaponry useless. Earth's weapons, whether conventional or experimental, cannot penetrate these shields, making it nearly impossible for humanity to engage in any direct military confrontation with the empires without suffering catastrophic losses. Any attempts to destroy or damage the Empire's ships would likely end in failure, as Earth's weapons are outclassed by their force fields. Superior propulsion systems. The Empire's fleets are equipped with advanced propulsion systems that allow them to travel across vast distances, moving at speeds that dwarf humanity's spacecraft. They can cross interstellar distances in mere days, if not hours, while Earth's ships struggle to reach even neighboring star systems in a reasonable time frame. The Empire's ability to mobilize massive fleets instantly and appear wherever they are needed gives them an unfair advantage in both offensive and defensive operations. Earth, with its relatively slow-moving spacecraft, is at a severe disadvantage, unable to compete with the Empire's speed and strategic reach. Artificial intelligence and autonomous systems. Beyond conventional weaponry and propulsion, galactic empires often utilize advanced artificial intelligence to control and optimize their fleets, weapons, and defense systems. These AI systems can make split-second decisions, predict enemy movements, and deploy military assets with precision and efficiency that surpasses human capabilities. Human strategists, despite their brilliance, are unable to compete with these autonomous systems, which can outthink and outmaneuver human tactics on the battlefield. Unrivaled technological infrastructure. The technological infrastructure that supports these empires, factories, energy sources, research facilities, and AI networks, is designed to run at a scale unimaginable to Earth. They have the capacity to mass-produce advanced warships, build fleets of enormous scale, and maintain an unbreakable supply chain for both military operations and civilian control. In contrast, humanity's limited resources and infrastructure struggle to keep up with the demands of a long-term war. Earth cannot compete in terms of sheer technological output or sustainability, and the cost of maintaining a war effort against a galactic empire would stretch Earth's limited resources to the breaking point. Massive disparity in technological development. While Earth has made tremendous strides in space exploration, robotics, and military technology, the gap between Earth's capabilities and those of galactic empires is simply too wide to bridge in a reasonable amount of time. The empires have likely had millennia to develop and refine their technologies, while humanity is still in its infancy by comparison. The difference in technological evolution creates a nearly insurmountable obstacle for any resistance force to overcome. The technological superiority of galactic empires not only makes them unbeatable in direct combat, but it also hampers any efforts to build alliances, improve humanity's own technology, or mount a successful rebellion. Earth is caught in a catch-22, where any direct engagement risks total destruction, and even efforts to build up military strength face the overwhelming challenge of catching up to a civilization that has advanced far beyond anything humanity could hope to achieve in the foreseeable future. In the end, the sheer power of galactic empires' technology and the unbridgeable gap between their capabilities and Earth's own make any form of military resistance an uphill battle. This imbalance forces humanity to consider alternative strategies, diplomacy, subversion, and unity among smaller factions, if they ever hope to stand against the terrifying might of a galactic empire. The technological gap underscores the enormous challenge of fighting an enemy with the ability to wipe out civilizations and reshape entire galaxies at will. One of the most formidable challenges in battling against galactic empires is their seemingly endless supply of resources. The vast scale of these empires gives them unparalleled access to raw materials, energy sources, and manufacturing capabilities that no smaller civilization can match. This endless supply of resources allows the galactic empires to sustain their massive military operations, build overwhelming fleets, and maintain cutting-edge technologies. In short, these resources are the backbone of the empire's ability to wage war and expand their power throughout the galaxy. Control over critical resources. Galactic empires are capable of securing and controlling entire star systems that are rich in essential resources, such as minerals, energy sources, and fuel for their advanced technologies. This control means that they have infinite access to the materials required to produce vast numbers of ships, weapons, and military equipment. For example, the empires might control planets rich in rare metals needed to build advanced spacecraft or planets with unlimited energy reserves that fuel their hyperdrive systems and weapons. With such access, they are never limited in their military production and can continually replenish their forces without significant constraints. Sustained military campaigns. The Empire's ability to maintain an unstoppable war machine is directly tied to its resources. While smaller civilizations like Earth may struggle to produce enough weapons or ships to mount a prolonged military campaign, the galactic empires can mass-produce fleets of warships, train vast armies, and sustain military campaigns over decades or even centuries without the risk of running out of supplies. Their factories and industrial complexes operate at a scale that allows them to replace losses quickly, making them resilient to setbacks. In contrast, Earth would face devastating consequences if it lost even a small portion of its fleet or military hardware. Resources are simply too limited to maintain such a large-scale war effort over a long period. Economic might. The economic systems that power galactic empires are vast and interconnected, making it nearly impossible for smaller civilizations to undermine them. The empire's economies are designed to ensure that they have a continuous flow of resources from their controlled territories. This means that, even when facing resistance, the empire can still generate the wealth needed to finance their military, technological advancements, and political maneuvers. The sheer wealth of these empires allows them to build enormous fleets and armies, ensuring that they have an edge in any conflict. Colonization and resource exploitation. Galactic empires expand not only through military conquest but also by colonizing new planets and exploiting the natural resources of those territories. Once an empire captures a new system or planet, they set up resource extraction facilities, mining operations, and refineries to ensure that they can extract and use every last drop of valuable material. Earth, with its limited ability to expand and exploit distant planets, simply cannot compete with the scale of this resource-driven expansion. The Empire's ability to keep colonizing and consolidating its power means that, over time, they will continue to grow stronger, while Earth struggles to maintain control over even a handful of systems. Technological and industrial monopoly. The Empire's immense resources also fuel their ability to maintain technological and industrial monopolies. They have the means to create advanced weapons and impenetrable defenses, as well as cutting-edge research facilities to develop the next generation of technologies. They can outpace smaller civilizations in innovation and military upgrades, using their resources to stay decades ahead in terms of military hardware. In contrast, Earth, with its limited resources and industrial capacity, finds itself unable to keep up with the technological pace of the Empire, making it difficult to mount an effective defense. Control over trade routes. The galactic empires also control vital trade routes that allow them to monopolize the flow of goods and resources across the galaxy. Any attempt by smaller factions to disrupt the empire's supply chains is met with overwhelming force. The empire's economic dominance means they can manipulate trade, set prices, and ensure that resources flow freely to support their war efforts. Any efforts by smaller civilizations to form trade alliances or economic pacts with one another are thwarted by the Empire's ability to shut down access to critical trade routes, leaving them unable to develop economically without the Empire's permission. Exploiting local populations. In addition to controlling resources on a planetary scale, galactic empires can also exploit the populations within their territories. By enslaving or oppressing local populations, they gain access to cheap labor and human resources that are put to work in their factories, on their ships, and in their military. This allows the empire to grow its workforce and industrial output without the need for additional resources. Smaller civilizations, on the other hand, lack the ability to exploit or control large populations to the same extent, making it difficult to compete with the empire's sheer manpower. Ultimately, the empire's endless resources give it the ability to perpetuate its dominance, maintain unstoppable military forces, and build an infrastructure that supports unending expansion. For smaller civilizations like Earth, this resource disparity creates a nearly insurmountable obstacle. The Empire's resources fuel its endless war machine, while Earth's limited resources create bottlenecks and vulnerabilities, making it nearly impossible to sustain a long-term fight against such a well-equipped and well-supported enemy. Earth is left facing a staggering imbalance, where victory seems out of reach without finding a way to overcome the Empire's unmatched supply of power. In addition to their technological superiority and endless resources, galactic empires are formidable opponents due to their unmatched political and strategic expertise. These empires are not just large in size or destructive in force, they are also incredibly efficient and shrewd when it comes to warfare, diplomacy, and maintaining control over their vast domains. The ability of galactic empires to wage successful wars, expand their influence, and control entire populations is deeply rooted in their highly sophisticated political systems and strategic thinking. Masterful political leadership. At the heart of these galactic empires is a highly structured political system, often consisting of experienced leaders, military commanders, and advisors who have spent years, if not decades, mastering the complexities of intergalactic relations. These leaders are not just military tacticians but also skilled diplomats who understand how to manipulate both alliances and oppositions to their benefit. The empires often have highly efficient bureaucracies that allow them to enforce their will and decisions across countless star systems, with low-level officials carrying out orders that maintain order, control, and loyalty within their spheres of influence. Political subterfuge and manipulation. Galactic empires are experts in political subterfuge. They often employ espionage, intelligence gathering, and propaganda to destabilize their enemies or to weaken the resolve of resistance movements. This could include false flag operations, misinformation campaigns, and covert alliances that create distrust and division within enemy ranks. They use divide and conquer tactics to pit factions against each other, turning potential allies into enemies and preventing any meaningful unified resistance from forming. The Empire's strategic brilliance lies not only in battlefield victories, but in their ability to manipulate the political landscape to their advantage. Efficient military command. The strategic expertise of galactic empires also extends to their military command. These empires have vast, well-organized military forces led by experienced commanders who understand the intricacies of large-scale war. Their armies are not just numerous but highly disciplined, with the ability to carry out complex operations across multiple battlefronts. These commanders excel at coordinating large fleets, using advanced AI-driven strategies, and executing multi-pronged attacks that maximize the efficiency of their forces. Their military expertise allows them to win battles not just through brute force, but through precision and strategy that outmaneuvers any smaller forces, such as Earth's military, which lacks the same level of coordination. Comprehensive long-term strategies. One of the major reasons it's so challenging to fight against galactic empires is their ability to engage in long-term strategic planning. These empires don't just win one battle or launch a successful campaign, they think in terms of decades or centuries. Every move is part of a broader strategic vision to expand their reach and strengthen their grip over the galaxy. They carefully plan for the future, preparing for the possibility of rebellion, creating contingencies in case of military setbacks, and ensuring that their forces are ready for sustained warfare. By contrast, smaller civilizations like Earth may only be able to focus on immediate concerns and short-term victories, without the ability to sustain their efforts over time. Global governance and control. Galactic empires also excel at maintaining control over the vast number of planets and populations they govern. They operate with a deep understanding of how to manage resources, suppress uprisings, and maintain order across multiple star systems. The administrative machinery that supports these empires is incredibly efficient, ensuring that every aspect of their empire is running smoothly. Corruption or dissent is typically snuffed out quickly, and any form of resistance is met with swift retribution. The empire's ability to monitor and control its vast territories ensures that resistance movements are often unable to gain traction or sustain themselves for long periods. Psychological warfare and diplomacy. The political and strategic expertise of galactic empires also includes their use of psychological warfare and manipulation in diplomacy. They know how to negotiate in ways that weaken their enemies and manipulate their allies. For instance, empires might offer peace treaties while secretly preparing for a surprise attack, or they might use diplomatic pressures to isolate their enemies from potential allies, forcing them into submission without a single shot being fired. These empires excel at playing the long game, using subtle influences and diplomacy to achieve their goals without needing to engage in full-scale military confrontations. Incorporating different factions and alliances, galactic empires are skilled in building alliances with smaller, weaker species or factions, offering them limited power or influence in exchange for loyalty. These alliances can be used to further divide their enemies, prevent rebellions from forming, and expand their control through diplomatic means. By keeping potential resistors divided and distracted, empires can consolidate power without the need for excessive force. Fighting against galactic empires is not only challenging due to their technological superiority, military might, and strategic expertise, but also because of their cultural dominance. Galactic empires don't just seek to control physical space or military assets. They aim to reshape cultures, impose their own values, and subjugate societies by altering the very fabric of the people they conquer. This cultural influence is one of the most powerful weapons the empire possesses, as it can create deep psychological and social rifts, making it difficult for any resistance to form or succeed. Imposing new beliefs and ideologies. One of the first tactics of galactic empires is the imposition of their own belief systems and ideologies onto conquered populations. They don't just conquer planets, they work to reshape the minds of the people living there. By promoting their own religions, philosophies, and governance models, they aim to replace existing beliefs and systems with their own, ensuring that future generations are loyal to the empire's ideals. This can include brainwashing or reprogramming entire populations through education systems, propaganda, or direct manipulation. Over time, this can lead to an identity crisis within the conquered species, where they begin to doubt their own values, traditions, and heritage. For example, the Galactic Empire might replace local religions with their own universal ideology, teaching that their way is the only legitimate path. Over time, this can diminish resistance from the populace, as the idea of standing against the empire becomes unthinkable. People begin to believe that their own culture is inferior or outdated, further eroding the will to resist and leading to assimilation rather than rebellion. Psychological manipulation and control. Beyond changing beliefs, galactic empires often use psychological warfare to weaken the resolve of their conquered people. They make them feel inferior and powerless, convincing them that resistance is futile and that their best hope for survival lies in submitting to the empire's rule. This can involve subjugating language, where the empire forces the people to speak their language and adopt their customs, further eroding any sense of identity that might fuel rebellion. Cultural erasure is often part of the process, where traditional customs, festivals, and local practices are either outlawed or co-opted into the empire's narrative, making it difficult for the people to hold on to their sense of self. Economic and social systems designed to suppress resistance. A crucial part of the empire's cultural dominance is its ability to reshape the economy and social systems of the conquered planets. By controlling key aspects of the economy, such as trade, resource extraction, and labor, they can create a dependent society that relies entirely on the empire's infrastructure. These systems often create economic hierarchies where the conquered species have very little power, and any attempt at resistance is swiftly crushed. The empire's elite classes may live in luxury, while the rest of the population works in near-slavery conditions, reinforcing the idea that the empire is all-powerful and that rebellion is not only impossible but also pointless. Creating division and conquer, rather than a direct military assault, one of the most insidious tactics of galactic empires is their ability to create division within the conquered society. They often exploit existing ethnic, racial, or cultural divisions, pitting groups against each other to prevent any unified resistance from forming. They might support certain factions or groups over others, ensuring that the conquered species is constantly at odds with itself. This strategy of divide and conquer weakens the ability to organize a collective resistance, as different groups might be too distrustful or divided to work together against the empire. It's not just about conquering a planet, it's about ensuring that no resistance movement can gain enough strength to challenge the empire's rule. Creating dependence on the empire. Another aspect of cultural dominance is the empire's ability to create a system of dependence. Over time, the conquered populations may come to rely on the empire for everything, from food and resources to security and technology. The empire ensures that the conquered species cannot function without its support, making it nearly impossible for them to break free without risking total economic collapse or chaos. For instance, if a resistance movement starts to form, the empire can cut off resources, control food supplies, or even destroy infrastructure, leaving the people in a state of desperation. This cultural dependence makes the conquered species feel helpless and incapable of standing up for themselves. Cultural assimilation through technology and media. The Galactic Empire uses advanced technology to maintain control over cultural expression. Through media, holographic broadcasts, and interactive entertainment, the empire can promote its own ideals and propaganda, further reinforcing its cultural dominance. These tools create a pervasive influence, ensuring that the empire's narrative is the only one that reaches the masses. Through advertisements, news broadcasts, and entertainment, the empire shapes the way the conquered populations see themselves, their history, and their future. As a result, the idea of resisting becomes almost unthinkable. The empire's presence becomes so ingrained in everyday life that it is seen as a normal, unchangeable part of existence. Loss of identity. Perhaps the most dangerous consequence of the empire's cultural dominance is the loss of identity among the conquered species. Over time, the people begin to lose touch with their own history, culture, and traditions. They may forget their past, accepting the empire's rewritten version of history, or they may become so assimilated into the empire's system that they no longer feel connected to their roots. The younger generations born into the empire's influence may not even remember what it was like before their world was dominated. This loss of identity makes it incredibly difficult for any resistance to hold on to the cultural pride and resolve that could drive them to rise up. One of the most potent weapons in the arsenal of galactic empires is the fear they instill in their enemies. The sheer scale of their military might, their ability to wipe out entire civilizations, and their relentless pursuit of control creates an environment of psychological terror that can make any resistance or rebellion seem pointless or suicidal. Fear is not just a tactic, it is a deeply ingrained part of how galactic empires maintain their dominance, suppress opposition, and ensure compliance from the populations under their rule. The fear of total annihilation. The most immediate and obvious form of fear that the galactic empires use is the threat of complete destruction. The empires possess the technological capability to destroy entire planets, wipe out civilizations, and erase populations in the blink of an eye. Their planet-killing weapons, massive fleets, and advanced war technology create a constant threat of extermination for any species or resistance movement that dares to oppose them. The fear of being wiped off the galactic map is often enough to keep smaller civilizations or factions from even considering rebellion. The sheer scale of their destructive power makes it seem impossible for anyone to stand against them without facing absolute annihilation. The knowledge that an empire can wipe out an entire planet with a single weapon or crush a rebellion with overwhelming force creates a psychological barrier that prevents people from even attempting to fight back. Earth, with its relatively small population and limited technological capability, faces an empire whose planetary-scale military power is so overwhelming that any move against them seems like a hopeless mission. Subjugation through fear of repression, beyond the direct threat of destruction, galactic empires instill fear by suppressing any forms of resistance with brutal, swift repression. When an uprising occurs, the empire responds with overwhelming force, decimating entire cities, and imprisoning or executing leaders of the rebellion. This creates a climate of terror where people are afraid to act or speak out against the empire, knowing that any dissent could result in harsh punishment, or even death. The empire may also punish entire families or communities for the actions of a few, effectively using collective punishment to instill fear in the populace. Entire populations are often subjugated by the constant threat of being punished for the actions of any individual or group that resists the empire's control. This tactic breaks the spirit of the people and creates a state of constant anxiety, where no one feels safe to challenge the empire's rule, knowing that even the smallest act of defiance could bring about severe consequences. Economic and social control through fear. Fear is also wielded in economic and social systems. Galactic empires often create a culture of fear around basic survival. By controlling the flow of resources, energy, and food, the empire ensures that the population remains dependent and afraid to question its authority. Those who attempt to resist may find themselves cut off from vital supplies, exiled, or isolated from any resources that allow them to survive. The fear of starvation, disease, or economic collapse keeps the population in line, as they know that opposing the empire could result in the loss of access to the basic necessities of life. The empire also uses surveillance systems and informants to create a society where people are afraid to trust each other. Internal spying, police states, and informants ensure that even private conversations or thoughts are never truly free of the empire's influence. The fear of betrayal or being labeled a traitor keeps people in constant check, forcing them to live in a state of paranoia and conformity. This fear of surveillance not only stifles dissent but also makes it incredibly difficult for any underground resistance movements to operate effectively. Psychological control and fear of the unknown. The empire also plays on psychological fear by manipulating the perception of the unknown. By controlling the flow of information and education, the empire limits the knowledge its subjects have about the galaxy beyond their controlled borders. People are kept in the dark about the true scale of the universe and the potential for rebellion. This ignorance breeds fear because the populations are taught that they are small, insignificant, and incapable of challenging the empire's might. They are led to believe that resistance is not only futile but also dangerous, as it could bring about destruction or suffering. Additionally, the empire may employ fear-based propaganda to further solidify its hold. By creating external enemies, using demonization tactics, and inflating the dangers of resisting the empire, they foster a siege mentality. The people begin to fear everything outside the empire's walls, not just the external threats, but also the idea of losing the security and order the empire promises. This psychological manipulation reinforces the idea that order under the empire, even through fear, is preferable to the uncertainty of rebellion. Creating a climate of hopelessness. One of the most powerful aspects of the fear factor is the empire's ability to induce a sense of hopelessness. When the population perceives the empire as all-powerful and unbeatable, it creates a feeling of futility. The desire to fight back or resist diminishes as people come to believe that no matter what they do, the empire will always win. This hopelessness creates an atmosphere of compliance, where people are too afraid or demoralized to even consider rebellion as a possibility. The relentless nature of galactic empires is one of the most significant obstacles any civilization faces when attempting to resist their control. Unlike small factions or individual planets, galactic empires operate on an unstoppable scale, where any rebellion or resistance is often met with overwhelming force, strategic ingenuity, and the sheer weight of the empire's resources and power. The empire can afford to lose battles, suffer setbacks, and adjust its strategies, but smaller civilizations like Earth face the constant risk of total collapse from a single failure. This disparity between the empire's resilience and the vulnerability of smaller resistance forces makes it incredibly difficult for any rebellion to succeed. The empire's strength lies in its infinite resources and the relentless pace at which it can mobilize its forces. When a rebellion or a resistance movement forms, the empire can afford to suffer minor defeats without being significantly weakened. Lost battles or the temporary capture of some territories don't change the Empire's fundamental power. They regenerate, rebuild, and reorganize with lightning speed. Their access to vast planetary resources, endless industrial production, and massive fleets allows them to reinforce their position over and over again. For the Resistance, a single defeat or small loss could result in irreversible damage to their cause. This unrelenting momentum means that the Resistance will often find itself fighting a losing battle, unable to match the Empire's ability to replenish its forces or re-strategize effectively. When Resistance movements manage to strike back or disrupt the Empire's control, the Empire responds with brutal retaliation. This isn't just a response to military conflict, it's a punitive response designed to send a message and eliminate any hope of rebellion. The Empire's retaliation can range from systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure to the massacre of rebellious populations. The psychological impact of these retaliatory actions is devastating for resistance groups, as they are forced to confront the reality that even a small act of defiance can result in catastrophic consequences. This fear of retribution keeps the population under control and often makes it difficult for them to sustain their efforts. Unlike smaller factions that are highly dependent on morale, the Empire operates with a steady, unwavering resolve, never allowing its own internal failures to derail its long-term objectives. The Empire's ability to persevere despite challenges is often what wears down any resistance. Over time, the relentlessness of the Empire becomes a war of attrition, a slow but inevitable process where smaller civilizations or resistance forces become increasingly exhausted. These smaller factions may not have the resources to maintain long-term warfare. Supplies run low, casualties mount, and morale starts to fade. Meanwhile, the Empire is capable of drawing from infinite reserves, be it resources, soldiers, or ships, constantly replenishing its forces and adapting to the changing conditions of battle. Humanity, in contrast, has limited manpower, limited resources, and no means to regenerate at the scale the Empire can, making prolonged resistance a frustrating and ultimately exhausting endeavor. What makes the Empire particularly dangerous is its ability to adapt strategically. When one form of warfare fails, whether it's open battles, covert operations, or political subterfuge, the Empire simply shifts tactics. It has the resources to diversify its approach and target the resistance from every angle: military, economic, psychological, and diplomatic. For example, if a resistance movement starts to gain strength by utilizing guerrilla warfare, the Empire will begin to implement counterinsurgency tactics, hunting down leaders, cutting off supplies, or using advanced AI systems to predict and counter every move. If the resistance seeks to rally public opinion or create alliances with other factions, the Empire can use propaganda, misinformation, and even economic manipulation to divide and conquer those potential allies, ensuring they can never unify against the Empire. The dynamic nature of the Empire's strategy allows it to maintain control even as its adversaries attempt to adapt. The Empire is never caught off guard because it's always in a state of constant readiness, with various strategies already in place for different scenarios. Smaller factions, on the other hand, are limited by short-term thinking and resource scarcity, often unable to sustain or outmaneuver the Empire's long-term strategic planning. One of the most devastating aspects of the Empire's relentless nature is its ability to impose psychological fatigue on its enemies. As battles continue, casualties mount, and the Empire maintains a steady presence, resistance groups begin to experience a gradual erosion of hope. The constant pressure and unwavering dominance of the Empire can lead to disillusionment among those who once fought with zeal. The emotional toll of knowing that every victory will be countered and every advancement will be followed by retribution can break the spirit of even the most determined warriors. Over time, people begin to wonder if fighting back is even worth the cost, and the thought of continued resistance starts to feel like an impossible and pointless endeavor. Finally, the Empire's overwhelming strategic depth also means that it has the long-term vision to ensure that any resistance movement is eventually neutralized. In addition to conventional military forces, the Empire uses intelligence agencies, covert operations, and political maneuvering to infiltrate, disrupt, and destabilize any movements. Resistance leaders may find themselves undermined by internal sabotage, betrayal, or economic collapse, all coordinated by the Empire's intelligence apparatus. Even if the resistance manages to secure temporary victories or gain ground, the Empire will always be one step ahead, executing plans to eliminate any long-term threat. Despite the overwhelming power and relentless nature of the galactic empires, there remains a sliver of hope for those fighting to preserve their freedom and independence. This final part of the struggle revolves around the formation of a unified resistance, one that seeks to unite smaller factions, societies, and civilizations against the Empire's seemingly unstoppable dominance. While the odds may seem impossible, this moment captures humanity's unwavering belief in the power of unity, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dare to stand up against an empire that seems invincible. The realization that the Empire cannot be defeated by isolated factions or individual efforts forces humanity, and other smaller civilizations, to come together. The first step is the formation of a unified resistance, an alliance of various species, groups, and organizations that, despite their differences, understand the necessity of cooperation and collective action. This alliance is born out of a shared desire for freedom, a common goal to resist subjugation, and the recognition that only through unity can they hope to stand against the Empire's sheer force. At the heart of this resistance is the belief that freedom is worth fighting for, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The people who join this resistance are motivated by the idea that no matter how powerful the Empire may seem, the fight for autonomy and self-determination is a battle worth engaging in. This spirit is what drives the resistance forward, fueling their desire to unite in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. One of the biggest challenges in creating a unified resistance is overcoming the political, cultural, and social barriers between various factions. In a galaxy ruled by galactic empires, many different civilizations have developed their own cultures, values, and systems of governance, making it difficult for them to come together under a single banner. The Empire, in its divide-and-conquer strategy, has long relied on these differences to keep potential adversaries from uniting. However, the need to resist the Empire becomes more important than any divisions or differences that once separated them. The resistance leaders work tirelessly to bridge these divides, using diplomacy, shared goals, and the promise of a better future to encourage cooperation. The realization that unity is their only chance against the Empire unites them across species and cultures, allowing them to put aside their individual differences for a common cause. Communication and coordination are key as they develop strategies for fighting the Empire together, pooling their resources and knowledge in ways that were previously impossible. Once united, the resistance turns to innovative tactics and guerrilla warfare to fight back against the Empire. They understand that they cannot directly challenge the Empire's massive fleets and overwhelming forces, but through hit-and-run attacks, sabotage, and strategic strikes, they can begin to wear down the Empire's defenses. The resistance uses stealth and deception, employing tactics that make use of their limited resources and knowledge of the terrain to strike at the Empire's weak points. Technology sharing becomes critical as the resistance learns to create more effective weapons and defensive strategies by pooling knowledge from all the species involved. Human ingenuity and the determination of each faction's scientists and engineers help them develop new technologies that can challenge the Empire's technological superiority. Adaptive camouflage, anti-shield weaponry, and hacking tools are some of the innovations that allow the resistance to engage in a battle of attrition, where each victory is a small step toward undermining the Empire's power. Despite being vastly outgunned and outnumbered, humanity becomes a symbol of the indomitable spirit of resistance. The human will to fight for freedom and refuse subjugation resonates with other species and becomes a rallying point for those who have long lived under the oppressive rule of the Empire. The human capacity for resilience, adaptability, and innovation becomes a beacon of hope for the rest of the galaxy. The human spirit is often portrayed as unkillable. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, humans refuse to back down. This resilience, coupled with the collective strength of the Allied resistance forces, becomes a counterbalance to the Empire's terror. As the resistance gains momentum, they inspire others across the galaxy to join the fight, creating a growing wave of rebellion against the Empire's rule. Humanity, once seen as weak or insignificant, becomes a powerful symbol of defiance and hope. A war of attrition. The battle against the Galactic Empire is not one of immediate victory, it is a long-term struggle, a war of attrition where the resistance fights not just to win battles, but to wear down the Empire's resolve over time. Each act of defiance, each small victory, adds up to something greater. The Empire's continuous efforts to destroy and crush the resistance serve only to galvanize the Allied forces, increasing their determination to resist at all costs. The Empire's exploitation of resources and reliance on overwhelming force become their greatest weaknesses, as their supply lines are stretched thin and their soldiers grow weary of endless campaigns. In the end, the unified resistance realizes that victory may not come in one final battle but through a slow and sustained effort to chip away at the Empire's power and reclaim lost territories. The victory of the resistance is defined not by a single heroic act but by the unity of purpose that unites all the smaller civilizations in their collective fight for freedom. After years of struggle, strategic innovation, and countless sacrifices, the resistance reaches a tipping point. Through unity, determination, and human ingenuity, they manage to execute a decisive blow against the Empire, striking at its core, be it through a massive battle that incapacitates their fleets or an attack that disrupts their supply chains. The Empire, exhausted and fractured by constant warfare, finally begins to crumble under the weight of resistance's perseverance. This final triumph is not just a military victory, it is a symbolic win for all those who fought for freedom, self-determination, and unity. The galaxy, once under the dark shadow of the Empire, begins to see a new dawn, one where smaller civilizations, empowered by their collective strength, can chart their own destinies free from the tyranny of an empire that once seemed invincible.